Afternoon. Thank you for your patience.
I'm waiting for parties to come back.
I can pop back in the breakout room and sound for my client to make sure she followed.
Okay.
Okay, I'll do that. I'll tell her to come.
And then I will get the respondent.
All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for your patience today.
Sorry.
All right. We have finally reached your case on the calendar. Believe it or not, it will not be the last one that we handle today. And so, oh my God.
I think he fell off.
Yeah.
Judge, I'm sorry you're having such a long day.
That's okay. I mean, what was last week? 5:45, 6 o'clock, I think, and that was just to get off the Zoom. That doesn't include the paperwork. So,
Oh gosh.
we've been on a heater lately, is all I can say. So, I mean, considering it was 34 cases on the calendar, we're not in bad shape. That we've got, I think we have 10, 14, and the jail case is the only 3 that we're still dealing with. So, it's not too bad.
We're always happy to draft orders and submit them for you, even if you make a ruling from the bench, to the extent that helps.
It's most of it, the number of resets and dismissals we end up with is kind of where a lot of it goes, just having to track down, what day was the order issued, what day was it filed, and getting all that for the continuance makes that part a little slower for me. I haven't found a way to speed that up yet. All right, sir, are you able to hear us this time?
Yes, Your Honor. Good afternoon.
All right, good afternoon. We've all been dealing with our connection stuff all day. And so sometimes it'll be me, sometimes it'll be you, sometimes it'll be someone else. The way that this works, it's the petitioner's case and their burden of proof. They will present testimony. Ms. Jordan, do you intend to call any other witnesses besides the petitioner?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, so they'll present their testimony in the form of the petitioner. After they have finished testifying, you'll have a chance to suggest questions if you believe there are questions you wish the court to ask the other party. If I think they're relevant and helpful, then I will do so. And then after they have rested, you have a choice as to whether you present evidence or testimony. And then at that point, I will make a ruling on the case. Understand that it is their burden of proof and that they go first as a result of that. Understand that the time for questions is the time for questions, and the time for statements is the time for statements. And the way that this is structured, in many ways feels backwards to our participants, because what would make the most sense in some cases would be to make your statement in response to their statement. And so just choose your questions carefully, understanding that the court already knows the two of you don't agree on the facts, or else we wouldn't be having the hearing in the first place. So we will do the best we can to move through that. And there may be times where I have additional questions that I either have to interrupt with or jump in with at a certain point. I will also let y'all know we have a courtroom inside the DeKalb County Jail, and we have very limited access to that courtroom, and it is at 4 o'clock on Tuesday. And so right before I brought you in, I sent the parties on a jail case to go talk to our court facilitator, Mr. Burke. If he comes back with an announcement, I may need to pause the hearing for a few moments, talk to those parties so that the deputies can be released to conduct other duties at the jail, and then we'll resume with your hearing as soon as we're able. If they need a full hearing, then they will have to wait for us to finish. So if we have to pause, it won't be more than 5 to 7 minutes ideally. So with all of that, Ms. Jordan, you can begin.
Thank you, Judge. And I think this one's straightforward. Sometimes I'll do an opening statement to clarify any of the background facts. I think we can just skip it and go into testimony unless the court wants me to clarify anything, like relationship between the parties, anything like that.
No, you can go on in, you can swear your witness in and begin.
Okay, thank you, Judge. All right, I'm going to call Ms. Reynolds, the petitioner in the case, as my first as our only witness. Ms. Reynolds, you can go ahead and unmute yourself. All right, and then I'm going to swear you in. So can you just raise your right hand? Okay, do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give is the truth under penalty of perjury?
I do.
Okay, you can put your hand down. All right, so I'm just going to get through some of the background stuff. Is the respondent in this case, is that someone you had a romantic relationship with at some point?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and did the two of you live together?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and did you live together up until the point that the protective order was served?
We lived together up until he finally moved his things out last Sunday.
Okay, thank you. About how long had the two of you been dating?
A little over a year.
And how long had the two of you been living in the same residence?
A matter of months. 3 months. Yeah.
Okay, great. All right, let's just jump into the meat of this case. You list in your petition an incident that happened on New Year's Eve, this very past New Year's Eve. Can you just walk the court through what happened on that day?
Yes. So I live on Glenwood in East Atlanta Village, and I'm within walking distance of Flatiron, and I had a few of my girlfriends invite me to go out to Flatiron. So I did. And at Flatiron, we, had a few beers, no more than 3. I had about 2 or 3, and it was raining that night. So I asked the bartender for some paper towels. They were actually kind of decent paper towels. They weren't your typical bar towels. So I put them in my pocket because I knew I'd have to use them for my classes again. I got into a motorcycle accident in March 2019 where I lost my leg and endured a traumatic brain injury. And I also...
hang on a second. I think there was an objection. So
Reference to her prior injuries.
That's overruled. Without knowing where that might be going, I can't say that that's irrelevant yet. So she can continue.
Yeah.
I struggle. So my bladder also exploded in the motorcycle accident, and I struggle with incontinence now. I was waiting to use the restroom. I was waiting in line, couldn't hold it. My bladder released. I had to come home and change clothes. I had to change my pants. And then we were going to go over to my girlfriend's house afterwards and just hang out and giggle, whatever. And so I come home and I take everything out of my pockets. I put it on my bed. I have my beer can. I put it on my nightstand. And Jose came home madder than hell about something, and just barged into my room, sees the beer can, immediately starts telling me that I am just hammered and that I am highly intoxicated. Goes over to my bed, sees that I have cigarettes on my bed, starts accusing me of quote unquote verbatim sucking dick for cigarettes. He sees a little bit of cash I have on the bed from my dad giving me some Christmas money, and he starts, accusing me of hiding money from him, even though I had given him every little bit that I did make to help pay for bills. And he picks up the paper towels. He starts accusing me of being on cocaine and starts ravaging through the paper towels just viciously. And so I'm not feeling good. He obviously, with him being in this rage, I'm not reacting to it very well. And so I tell him to leave my room. He doesn't listen. And so I raise my voice, and I eventually start having a panic attack, start screaming and crying and telling him to leave my room. He's obstructing my pathway out of my bedroom. I'm in the midst of a panic attack, and I'm just flailing, just trying to get him out and get my space. And he cornered me. And
let me stop you right there. About how long were you cornered in your room without being able to leave?
I was cornered what seemed like forever, but it was probably factually about 3 to 5 minutes.
Okay. And during this time, was the respondent's behavior intimidating to you?
Incredibly intimidating. He when he cornered me, he squared up his shoulders. He like bowed out his elbows. Like he took on a fighting stance.
And
And
by that, like where were his hands? Like were his fists and balls, or were they like what do you mean by fighting stance?
so his fists weren't like clenched, but they were in a what we call a working throw punch. We are professional wrestlers, and so he naturally goes to this working hand, and his elbows were out and his shoulders were back. His chin was up. He 100% looked like I was genuinely afraid for my safety. I did not think, and there was no way I would have been able to physically defend myself. Not only am I, 100 pounds and he's 300 pounds, but I'm also disabled on one leg. I am no match. If he, it would have. I was genuinely terrified for my safety.
And while you were cornered and he was obstructing your ability to exit the room, what sort of things was he saying?
Oh, he was saying all kinds of things, very demeaning, almost instigating.
Well, let me ask you another question. Was he refusing to leave the room?
Yes, he refused to leave the room.
Okay.
I was like screaming and crying and shaking, and he refused to leave the room. I not only asked him to, but then I told him to, and then I screamed at him to, and he didn't actually leave until I felt like I had no other choice, and I felt like I had to defend myself, and I pulled my firearm out of a dresser drawer. Never once did the muzzle point at him. The barrel always stayed at the ground. I was raised on a horse farm, so firearm safety is the top of my priority. That was enough to snap him out of his rage, just seeing it, and he backed out of my room. Thank God, finally. And I ran over to the door and I locked it.
Okay. And okay, so after that, did you leave the residence?
Yes. So after that, I didn't feel comfortable in my own home. I didn't feel comfortable in my skin. I felt very unsafe. So I left.
About how many days did you go, or did you go to an undisclosed location, like a place he didn't know where you were?
Yes, I went to an undisclosed location. I feared so much for my safety that I didn't even tell the people closest to me where I was, because I knew he would contact them, and he did.
Well, let me ask you, how long did you stay at an undisclosed location?
4 days.
Okay. And did the respondent attempt to try to find you during that time?
Yeah, he contacted my dad. He contacted my friends. He contacted my employer at the time. He contacted every single person who was close to me, and that was the reason why I didn't tell anybody where I was going, because I didn't feel safe and I didn't want them to have to lie for me.
Okay. All right. Did he also contact your psychiatrist?
He did. On January 4th, he contacted my psychiatrist and actually told him a version of the truth that was highly distorted. and my psychiatrist in return decided to alter my medications. So he was not only physically, you know, violating, but he was also mentally like violating my health, my space, my peace. And I had been on a medication called Lexapro. I'd been stabilized on Lexapro for a few years, and because of him, contacting and lying to my doctor, my doctor weaned me off, and now we are still, troubleshooting what works for me now. We
So
are.
let me stop you. Without getting too deep into medical history stuff, because this is live streamed, you mentioned earlier that you had a panic attack. Is that something you've experienced before?
Yes, ma'am.
So when you say panic attack, you don't mean you were anxious, you mean a medical event.
Yes. I have been diagnosed.
Okay. All right. Let's backtrack a little bit. In your petition, you said that there have been other incidents of violence. Can you tell the court about another incident that happened in the past?
Yes. So we were doing a pressure washing job. It was late this past summer. We were doing a pressure washing job, and we got into an argument about what, I have no idea anymore. But he got, I was panic pacing because he gets me so riled up. And I went to just walk away from the argument, simply just walk away. And he grabbed my arm and on my one leg swung me around to where I was facing him and wouldn't let me walk away from the argument.
Okay. And when you say on your one leg, I know you mentioned that you have a disability. So are you an amputee? Do you only have one leg?
Yes, ma'am. I'm a below the knee amputee.
Okay. And so if he spins you around, is that the same as, does that have the same effect as it would with someone who has two legs, or is it different?
Oh, it's very different. Walking on a prosthetic is one of the worst high heels I've ever put on. Your gaits change, because your body weight is different. So your body compensates in different ways. Your brain, fires in different manners. And sometimes, because of my traumatic brain injury, my brain doesn't fire quick enough, efficiently enough. And I absolutely am at risk of getting very hurt.
Okay. All right. Are there any other incidents that you think the court should consider for this protective order?
Let me think. I'm sure I could come up with some things. I'm sorry. I'm just.
That's okay.
Very. Yeah. Thank you.
That's okay. Let me ask you one final question, and that is, maybe one final line of questioning. Are you seeking this protective order because you're in fear for your safety?
Yes, ma'am. He works in professional wrestling, so do I. We do go along the same roads together, and I have seen him go out of his way to what they call take a liberty on another wrestler. Basically intentionally hurt somebody that trusted their body to him.
Objection, Your Honor. That's hearsay.
It's not hearsay, but it is outside the scope of this hearing. So I'll sustain your objection, just not for the reason it was made.
I'll ask a more directive question. Are you in fear for this? Why don't you tell the court about some of the things you've had to do to protect yourself from the respondent?
I've had to leave my home. I've had to essentially disappear. I've had to isolate myself from people that love me and that care about me to keep myself and them safe. I've had to he's slandered me in so many different ways. I've had to, defend myself, even though, like, I don't know.
I think we can leave it there.
Thank you.
All right. I think that's it for my questions, Judge.
All right. So, sir, the way, by and large, what this hearing is here to decide is whether or not there have been acts of family violence committed that justify the issuance of a protective order. And so this is the portion of the proceedings where you have the opportunity to ask her questions. If you wish to ask her questions, you can suggest those to the court. And if I believe they are appropriate and helpful, then we will go forward with them and she can answer. If it's something that's outside the scope of the hearing or otherwise evidentiarily inappropriate, then we may not ask the question. Is there any question that you think the court should ask of this witness?
Yes, Your Honor. From the night she's speaking of, I did surrender in a video. I'd like to show it before I ask my next 3 questions. Is there any way I could do that, sir? Your Honor?
When did you send that in?
They were sent in and accepted into evidence earlier this morning.
Okay. Madam Clerk, are you able to see those?
Yes, Judge.
All right. We're going to set up a screen share. And so you're asking to play the video so you can then ask questions about it?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Is this what you were looking for?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
Becky, look how you're acting.
Get the fuck out of my
You're
room.
trying to grab a knife, you just said, to stab me.
Get the fuck out of my room.
Why are you grabbing a knife?
Put the camera away and get the fuck out of my room. I no longer want to speak to you.
Why are you still doing
I do not want to speak to you. Get out of my room.
Then what was in that tissue right there?
Absolutely fucking nothing. It's what I used to wipe my goddamn glasses off when it was fucking raining. Fuck you. I did not do any goddamn blow. Get the fuck out of my room. Get the fuck out of my goddamn room.
Okay. The first question I'd like to ask after watching that video is when that video was shot, I believe there was a moment before that where you actually left your room to go to my room to get your space heater, and I helped you carry your walker. If you weren't allowed to leave your own space, how come we both left your room to go grab your space heater and your walker?
Ms. Reynolds, it looks like you've gone back on mute. So, right, were you able to hear the question he asked?
Yes. Will you reiterate that in a more direct question, please?
Sure. Before that video was shot, you had stated in your before the video was shown, in your statement, you said that I came in, barged into your room, yelling and screaming, and kept you in that room. Before that video, there was a moment where you left the room, where you told me to move, and I moved to the side so you could go to my room to pick up your space heater, and I carried your walker into your bedroom. The walker that can be seen in the video next to your possum tree, correct?
Yeah, that was before things escalated and before I ended up having a panic attack and before it was before you started pushing me up against the wall, against the
So
bed.
how long would you estimate there was between those two portions of this event?
Let me see. I was cornered for about 3 to 5. Things escalated over a matter of probably about 15. So it was probably about 20 minutes before.
Your Honor, I'd like to go back to the statement she made earlier, if we could have him read them back. I believe she had stated that I came into her room yelling and screaming immediately and blocking her path.
Well, that's argumentative. It's not a question. This is the portion for questions.
Okay.
So
Okay,
what
fine.
questions do you have for her besides that?
The next part. When in the argument would you say that video was taken?
It was before I locked you out.
Asked and answered. She literally just said 20 minutes after, they went to get the space heater. Things escalated for 15 minutes.
I mean,
Okay.
I guess,
And how?
when he asked, so are both parties in agreement that this was more or less the end of it, or that portion of the exchange was, I'm sorry, not the video portion. You know what? It's been a long day. All right. We've been doing this since 9. It is 5. Yeah, she's provided enough of a timetable for her version of the event, so we can move to the next question.
Okay. You stated that you're a risk. You have balance issues and you're a risk of falling, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you also not a trained professional wrestling referee that goes out and does independent bookings outside of the one company that you trained with? So
Yes,
the belief
and
would
those
be
wrestlers are trained to watch out for the referee. And I am much easier to fall over, as in the last Deep South Wrestling show. I barely got nudged by Jacob Johnson. It is on YouTube to see. And I did topple over.
okay. And the incident that you said happened with the pressure washing job where I grabbed your wrist and spun you around. Which hand did I grab? Did I grab you with?
What do you mean?
Which hand did I use to
Your
grab?
hands?
Yes.
I don't know. Probably you're right. I don't remember.
Okay. You had also stated that I had an altercation with another professional wrestler in a ring. Do you remember me ever having any injuries coming out of a situation like that?
That was irrelevant when it was asked, and so going into it now would not be appropriate either.
Right.
Generally speaking, just for
okay.
both parties' information, sometimes the analogy I use, these cases are between one party and another party only. Whoever you can think of as the most dangerous person in the world, whether that's if you want to do Al Capone or if you're into true crime and want to pick your favorite serial killer, they can move in next door to you and you don't have any grounds for a protective order in Georgia unless they start doing things to you. And so we'll focus from here on interactions between the two of you.
Fair enough, Your Honor. You had also stated that you felt the need to go into hiding after the events of the morning of New Year's Eve, correct?
Yeah, I went, I disappeared. I felt like I had to. I felt like I had no other option.
Okay.
I didn't feel safe. I wasn't safe in my own home. I didn't feel comfortable in my skin.
And at no point were you up the block in the East Atlanta Village?
So she said that she went to an undisclosed location, which means it's a location she chose to keep private from you. And, you know, not to be sarcastic about it, because I truly don't intend it that way, but her testimony was that she went to a place that she believed you didn't know, and she's entitled to leave the answer at that, whether that was a place you think is close by or far away.
Fair enough, sir. Fair enough, Your Honor. Did you also not send me a text message saying that you were leaving for the night?
That I was leaving? Yeah, I did. I
Okay.
gave you that courtesy. I still felt obliged to you. I still, even
Okay.
though you made me feel like this, I still felt some sort of loyalty, unfortunately.
Okay. Next question. You said I reached out to your father, your friends, and your boss. Would it be more fair to say that your father contacted me because he couldn't get a hold of you asking if we were still coming to dinner? And that's when I started calling around looking for you 2 days later?
I don't understand the question.
Would it be a fair statement to say that on New Year's Day, perhaps your father had contacted me asking if me and you were coming to his house for dinner, and that's why I started calling around looking for you?
So she can't say why you did what you did or what was in your head, but we can reframe this. So do you know whether Miss Reynolds, do you know whether your father tried to contact the respondent at all?
I think he did. I think because we had plans to go over for New Year's dinner. I think whenever, and like I said, I isolated myself completely. So I think my dad reached out. I don't know that factually. I don't have, his phone in front of me or anything.
Okay. So she doesn't know directly, but she says that's certainly possible. So what other questions do you have?
Yeah.
Is it fair to say on the video that we see the only one yelling and screaming and striking is you?
Objection. The video speaks for itself. I mean, we saw it.
Yeah. I mean, that can be parsed in argument.
Fair enough. Okay, no further.
All right. Since Ms. Jordan has told us that will be her only witness, this is going to be the point that we pause. We do have a consent agreement on the jail case, so I'll need a few minutes to review that with both parties. And then when we return, sir, if you wish to give your testimony, you'll have the opportunity to do so at that time. So we're going to place you both in the waiting room just for a handful of minutes. If anyone needs to get a glass of water, stretch, whatever it may be, that's fine. And then we'll bring everybody back in shortly as soon as we're ready to resume.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you all.